The bio-arena buzzed with anticipation. Its cutting-edge architecture stood in sharp contrast to the savage ritual about to unfold. Giant holographic screens amplified every detail of the circular arena below, where ancient ceremonial symbols were carved into the metal floor. The crowd, mostly Thar warriors with their distinctive ridged silhouettes, roared and chittered, their cacophony echoing through the structure. Scattered among them were enslaved species, their faces showing everything from fearful curiosity to weary disgust. High above, the Cathar High Council members sat in elevated observation pods, their ceremonial armor glinting under stark lights. Their mandibles clicked in rhythmic excitement. In a maintenance tunnel beneath the arena's western quadrant, Kale swore as he fiddled with a welding tool. The noise from above rattled the pipes, making precision nearly impossible. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he glared at a damaged coupling. 15th time this quarter. They've overloaded the coolant system, he grumbled, wiping grime from his face with a hopelessly stained sleeve. And now another spectacle to keep the masses distracted. Perfect timing. He'd chosen this maintenance shift to dodge the crowds and security checks of Arena Vance. Now he regretted it. The vibrations from thousands of stomping feet and booming announcements threw off his calibrations. Kale's loose jumpsuit bulged with an array of tools and gadgets, excessive for routine repairs. His unremarkable face, save for eyes heavy with a weariness unfitting for his lowly role, betrayed nothing as he monitored the chaos above through a small ceiling gap. "Let's get this over with," he muttered, returning to the pipe. "The sooner their monster devours today's victim, the sooner I can finish and find somewhere quiet to crash." A thunderous announcement shook the arena, making Kale wince and nearly drop his tool. "Behold a traitor, the last daughter of the fallen, Xyler dynasty." Curiosity piqued, Kale shifted to peer through the gap again, spotting a slender figure dragged into the arena's center. She didn't look like the dangerous rebel the Cathar claimed. Her slight frame was bound in glowing blue energy restraints, her faintly luminescent skin shimmering. Her delicate yet resolute features framed eyes so deeply violet they seemed almost black. Despite the restraints and jeering crowd, she stood defiant. Lyra of Xyler, keeper of forbidden knowledge, refused to surrender her ancestors' sacred artifacts, the announcer boomed. For this treason against the glorious Cathar Empire, she shall feed the Void Maw. The crowd erupted in bloodthirsty cheers. Kale rolled his eyes. "Typical," he muttered. "Kill the ones who won't give you what you want. Brilliant strategy." Below, Lyra stood resolute as the Cathar gods retreated to the arena's edge. Her gaze swept the crowd, not in fear, but with cold calculation, as if memorizing faces for future vengeance. A low, menacing rumble rose from a massive gate opposite her. The metal doors shuddered, denting outward as something enormous slammed against them. The crowd hushed in expectation. "The Void Maw hungers," the announcer declared. The gates burst open with a deafening screech, revealing a monstrosity-defying nature, a canine-like beast fused with insectoid traits. Its chitinous plates gleamed instead of fur, and rows of teeth lined an unhinged jaw, revealing a glowing, pulsating gullet. 6 asymmetrical eyes swiveled, locking onto Lyra. The creature's emergence triggered a catastrophic pressure surge in the coolant system. Above Kale, pipes groaned ominously. He dove aside just as the coupling he'd been repairing burst, spraying superheated vapor across the tunnel. "Son of a—" His curse was drowned by the Void Maw's screech as it charged Lyra. Kale scrambled back, grabbing his toolkit as the floor above shuddered. The coolant leak had weakened the structural supports, and the creature's movements now threatened to collapse the section. A ceiling panel gave way, offering a glimpse of the arena. The Void Maw closing in on Lyra, who stood her ground, defenseless. Another beam groaned. Kale glanced at the crumbling infrastructure, then his half-finished repair. Then back to the arena. "This'll wreck my maintenance schedule," he grumbled, reaching into a hidden pocket of his jumpsuit. Above, Lyra faced death with unyielding dignity. The void maw charged, its jaws wide enough to swallow her whole. The crowd roared, anticipating the kill. None, not the crowd, not the High Council, not even the beast, noticed the floor section collapsing behind the creature until a figure in a stained jumpsuit emerged. Kale moved with a speed and precision unlike any maintenance worker. In his hand was a modified plasma cutter, altered in ways that would alarm security. "Hey, ugly!" he shouted, his voice cutting through the arena's din. The void maw paused, its eyes swiveling toward the interruption. Kale didn't hesitate. He darted forward, sliding beneath the beast's massive bulk. The plasma cutter flashed 3 times, striking seemingly random points on its underbelly. The creature froze, shuddered, then collapsed, twitching uncontrollably. The arena fell silent in shock. Kale stood, dusting off his jumpsuit with exaggerated nonchalance, and approached Lyra, whose expression had shifted from stoic resolve to stunned disbelief. "Neural energy nodes," he explained as if discussing the weather. "Always in the same spot on these engineered beasts. Hit them right, and it's like flipping a switch." He aimed the cutter at her restraints, tweaking its settings. The energy shackles flickered and died. "What? Who are you?" Lyra stammered, rubbing her freed wrists. "Can we skip the introductions?" Kale replied, glancing at the council pods where Cathar leaders now stood, mandibles clicking in fury. "In about 5 seconds, this place'll be chaos." Alarms blared and armored security doors slammed shut around the arena's perimeter. "Yep, that's it." Kale grabbed Lyra's arm. "Run now, talk later." They sprinted toward the maintenance shaft Kale had emerged from as Cathar guards flooded the arena. Energy bolts sizzled past, scorching the metal floor. "Down here." Kale shoved Lyra toward the opening, following as bolts struck where they'd stood. The tunnel was dark, lit only by pulsing red emergency lights. Steam hissed from the broken coupling, clouding visibility. "What is this place?" Lyra demanded, squinting through the vapor. "Maintenance level. Cathar love their grand architecture, but neglect the infrastructure powering it." Kale navigated the maze of pipes with ease. "Come on, the guards'll seal every exit." "You still haven't told me who you are," Lyra pressed, keeping pace despite her recent ordeal. "Does it matter? I'm the guy who saved you from being Monster Chow. Call me Kale." He paused at a junction, listening. "This way." They hurried down a narrower passage, pursuit echoing behind. "Why would you—" "Less talking, more running." Kale cut her off, pulling her around a corner as an energy bolt blasted the wall. "Can you swim?" "What? Yes, but—" "Good." Before she could argue, Kale kicked open a hatch. The stench of waste processing chemicals wafted up. "You're not serious," Lyra recoiled. "It's this or the Cathar, and they don't give second chances." Lyra nodded after a brief hesitation. "After you." "How chivalrous," Kale quipped dryly, jumping feet first into the hole. The waste disposal system was a network of semi-liquid channels, recycling organic matter. The translucent fluid carried them swiftly through the station's underbelly, its chemicals stinging but safe for brief exposure. 10 minutes later, they emerged in a lower-level processing plant, climbing from a filtration tank into a deserted work area. Alarms wailed distantly, but the immediate threat had passed. Lyra leaned against a wall, breathless and dripping with foul-smelling fluid. Her skin's natural luminescence still glowed, giving her an ethereal sheen despite her state. "That was—" she began. "Disgusting," Kale finished, shaking off droplets like a wet dog. "But effective. Cathar hate dirtying their mandibles. They won't follow us here." He rummaged in a utility closet, tossing Lyra some cleaning cloths before wiping his face. "You didn't answer my question." Lyra said, accepting the cloths. Why risk yourself to save me? A human with no stake in Cathar politics or Xyler survival. Kale focused on wringing out his sleeves. That thing's roaring messed up my work. Coolant system burst from the vibrations. Couldn't focus with the noise. Figured stopping the show was the fastest way to get peace. Lyra's eyes narrowed. You expect me to believe you disrupted a Cathar execution, made yourself a fugitive, and jumped into waste disposal because you were annoyed? Pretty much. Kale avoided her gaze, checking a small device from his pocket. We should move. This plant connects to the lower market district. We can blend in until the search cools off. Lyra studied him, unconvinced but aware of their situation. Lead the way, but this conversation isn't over. It never is, Kale muttered, pocketing the device and heading for a service exit. The lower market district was a chaotic sprawl catering to the station's non-Cathar population. Various species haggled at stalls selling dubious food and salvaged tech. Dense crowds and dim lighting made it ideal for fugitives. Kale navigated the maze expertly, occasionally checking that Lyra kept up. They'd cleaned off most of the waste fluid, but still drew disgusted glances from passers-by who gave them wide berth. In here, Kale gestured to a dilapidated structure wedged between larger buildings. A faded sign marked it as a storage facility, long abandoned. Inside, discarded crates and obsolete equipment cluttered the space. Kale moved to a back corner, triggering a hidden mechanism. A wall section slid open, revealing a small room. Well-prepared bolt hole, Lyra remarked, impressed despite herself. Always have exit strategies, Kale replied, ushering her in before sealing the entrance. The room was sparse but functional. A cot, basic sanitation unit, and a small cooking station. Tools and electronics lined one wall's shelves. Sit, Kale said, pointing to the cot. Let me check your wrists. Energy restraints can cause nerve damage. Lyra hesitated, then extended her arms. Her wrists were raw and discolored. Kale grabbed a medkit from a shelf, applying cooling gel and wrapping them in regenerative bandages with surprising care. Medical training, combat skills, and knowledge of Cathar bioengineered creatures, Lyra observed. Quite a resume for a maintenance worker. I pick things up, Kale said, securing the bandage. The station's full of info if you know where to look. And disabling that creature, something you just picked up? Kale's hands paused briefly. Engineered beasts have predictable weaknesses. He turned to the cooking station. Hungry? I've got protein packs barely expired. Fine. Dodge my questions, Lyra said. But the Cathar won't stop hunting us. They can't let us live now. I'm aware. Kale activated the cooker, which hummed to life. But first, food and rest. Strategy later. He handed her a steaming packet. Despite its appearance, it smelled appetizing. This is good, Lyra admitted after a cautious bite. Basic chemistry. Spices can make even station rations edible. Kale sat cross-legged on the floor, keeping his distance. So, what did you do to earn a date with the Void Maw? Must have been big. Lyra's face darkened. I refuse to betray my people. Your people are gone, per Cathar propaganda. Not gone. Hidden. She met his gaze. I'm the last of the royal bloodline, keeper of knowledge the Cathar would use to hunt down what's left of my species. What's so special about Xyler that the Cathar are this obsessed? Kale asked, chewing. Lyra touched her temple. We have abilities, biological connections Cathar tech can't replicate, access to ancient systems predating their empire. Mind reading? Kale raised an eyebrow. You in my head now? It doesn't work that way with humans, she said. But with compatible species, we can share thoughts, emotions, access systems via neural interfaces. It made us targets. Cathar wanted us as tools, keys to locked technology. When we resisted, they chose extermination. So why were you in their custody? Not a smart place for the last Xyler Royal. A shadow crossed Lyra's face. I was betrayed, sold by someone I trusted who didn't know my true identity, but saw my value. Before Kale could reply, a device on his belt beeped. He checked it, his expression hardening. What is it? Lyra asked. They're not just sending guards. They've assigned Commander Forlag to the hunt. Who's that? Military elite, specializes in tracking high-value targets, ruthless, efficient, perfect record. Kale punched commands into a wall terminal, pulling up station surveillance feeds. They're using molecular trackers with our DNA from the arena. They'll pinpoint us soon. So we leave the station, Lyra said. Not that simple. They'll lock down official transport. Smugglers might risk it, but I don't have enough credits. Kale switched feeds, his face grim. And Forlag will have teams at every exit. I might have a solution, Lyra said slowly. If we reach the old maintenance tunnels near the station's core, there's a forgotten docking bay from before Cathar occupation. Kale looked skeptical. And you know this how? Xyler helped build this station generations ago. The knowledge was passed down. She tapped her temple. Encoded in royal bloodlines, insurance against erasure. Convenient, Kale muttered, returning to the terminal. Assuming you're right, the core sector's heavily guarded. We'll need a distraction or disguise. Disguise, Lyra suggested. Kale nodded slowly. I might have something, but first... He yawned theatrically. I need sleep. No point planning an escape if I'm too tired to pull it off. Sleep now? Lyra stared, incredulous. Best time. Thar are still organizing, setting patterns. By the time we wake, we'll know their strategy. He stretched out on the floor. Take the bed. I'll manage here. You're the strangest rescuer I've met, Lyra said, shaking her head. Not a rescuer. Just a guy who wanted quiet to finish a repair. Kale closed his eyes. Wake me if the door explodes. Despite his casual pose, Lyra noted his hand stayed near the plasma cutter. Not as careless as he seemed. She settled on the cot, fatigue overtaking suspicion. Her last thought before sleep was that Kale was far more than a maintenance worker. Lyra woke to soft tinkering. Kale sat at a workbench, tweaking what looked like Cathar ID badges. What are you doing? She asked, sitting up. Making new identities, he said, not looking up. Service technician credentials. Cathar rarely notice low-ranking species on grunt work. Where'd you get Cathar IDs? I collect useful things. People drop stuff during arena events, especially when they're hyped for executions. He tossed her a badge. Its holographic display showed a vaguely Xyler-like face, altered to avoid recognition. Central Processing Sector Cleanup Crew, Kale explained. Grants access to your core tunnels. If your info's right, we might have a shot. And if it's not? Kale shrugged. We die somewhere more interesting than I expected. He retrieved 2 service uniforms from a locker, drab gray coveralls with utility belts and helmets suited for various species. Put this on, he said, tossing one to Lyra. The helmet hides your features, and the coveralls have chemical shielding to confuse DNA scanners temporarily. As Lyra changed, she noticed non-standard features. Hidden pockets, reinforced panels, and shielding circuits woven into the fabric. These aren't normal uniforms, she said. Modifications seemed wise given our situation. Kale fastened his belt, now holding tools and his plasma cutter. The best disguise isn't looks, it's behavior. Act like you belong, like you're stuck with a job no one wants. Cathar are arrogant. They don't look closely at lesser species. A terminal notification flashed. Kale checked it, his face darkening. What now? Lyra asked. Forlags deployed neural scent trackers. What are those? Nasty biotech. They don't just track physical trails. They detect neural patterns, emotional signatures. Kale grabbed a device from the workbench. They're tuned for Xyler, given your neural abilities, but might catch anomalies in my patterns too. You keep knowing things a maintenance worker shouldn't, Lyra noted. Let's focus on staying alive. Kale adjusted their helmet's settings. These have basic scramblers. Won't fully block trackers, but might buy time. They left the hidden room cautiously, Kale leading through back passages to avoid main corridors. The station had changed overnight. Cathar military presence had tripled, and civilians hurried with downcast eyes, avoiding attention. Maintenance access is 2 levels down, Kale murmured, pointing to a service lift rarely used except by workers. Walk casually, like we're starting a shift. They approached the lift, Kale adopting a slouched, bored posture, mimicking overworked staff. Lyra followed, eyes down as a Cathar patrol passed. The lift doors opened to an empty compartment. Kale swiped their forged credentials, and the doors closed, descending. Too easy, Lyra whispered. Hard parts coming, Kale said, checking a belt device. Core sector has triple security, and Forlags coordinating from Central Command, right on our path. Can we go around? Not if we want your dock. The lift slowed. Act bored. Act annoyed. Nothing screams suspicion like trying to hide. The doors opened to a utilitarian corridor lined with pipes. A Kthar guard stood at a checkpoint, scanning workers. DNA verification ahead, Kale muttered. Let me handle it. They approached with the resigned trudge of workers, facing a grim shift. Maintenance access, Kale said flatly, showing his badge. Waste recirculation backup in Section 12B. If it's not fixed soon, your barracks will be waiting in sewage. The guard hesitated, mandibles clicking in disgust. He scanned them cursorily, skipping thorough protocol. Proceed, he chittered, turning to the next workers. They kept their pace until out of sight. How'd you know that'd work? Lyra asked. Thar are meticulous, but bodily functions gross them out. Mention waste, and they'll end the talk fast. Kale checked his device. Core access is ahead, but there's a snag. Heavy security at the main junction. They peered around a corner, spotting a Cathar squad setting up a barricade. At its center stood a taller figure with red-marked exoskeleton and trophy-laden armor. Forlag, Kale whispered, pulling back. He's blocking us. No, he's searching methodically, Lyra said. Standard Cathar pattern, Kale agreed, studying his device. If we time it, we can slip through during their rotation. If we're caught, Kale patted his cutter, we test how good their commander is. They retreated to a maintenance closet, waiting as Kale tracked security via his device. After 10 minutes, he nodded. They're shifting to the next sector. We've got 3 minutes before relief arrives. They moved fast, sticking to cover behind equipment and supports. As they neared the core access tunnel, an alarm blared. Not for us, Kale said, checking his device. Security breach in the docking ring. Likely a diversion to flush us out. Works for us. Relief teams delayed. The core access door needed special clearance. Kale attached a device to the panel, which flickered before the door opened. After you, he gestured. The core tunnels were older, their elegant architecture hinting at their origins. Lyra moved confidently, tracing symbols on the walls invisible to non-Xyler eyes. My ancestors designed this section, she explained. They left markers only we'd recognize. After several turns, they hit a dead end. Lyra pressed her palm to a plain panel. Her skin glowed briefly, and a hidden door appeared. Biologically keyed, she said, catching Kale's raised eyebrow. Only Xyler royal blood activates it. Beyond was a small, preserved docking bay, unused for decades. A sleek vessel sat in its cradle, its flowing lines balancing aesthetics and function, and Xyler scout ship. "I wasn't sure it'd still be here," Lyra said reverently. "Will it fly?" Cale asked, practical as ever. "It's built to last centuries." Lyra touched the hull, which lit up. A hatch opened smoothly. Core systems linked to Xyler physiology. They boarded, the interior lighting activating. The cockpit had minimal controls, centered on two chairs with neural interface pads. "I can pilot it," Lyra said, taking the primary seat. "But launch might alert the Cathar." "They're already alerted," Cale said, checking his device. "Forlag's trackers found our trail. They're in the core tunnels." Lyra pressed the neural interfaces, and the ship hummed, systems spooling up. Ancient machinery stirred, preparing the bay. "How long to launch?" Cale asked, taking the secondary seat. 2 minutes for full activation. The bay doors need... An explosion rocked the dock. Through the viewport, they saw their entrance blown inward, Cathar troops pouring through, led by Forlag's imposing figure. "No time," Cale muttered, grabbing his cutter. "I'll hold them off. Get this flying." Before Lyra could protest, he was at the hatch. She focused on the ship, speeding up activation as energy weapons fired outside. Cale took cover behind cargo containers, dropping the first Cathar wave with eerie precision. His movements were fluid, nothing like the slouching worker he'd posed as. Forlag advanced calmly, analyzing Cale's position. "Your combat style is familiar, human," he called, mandibles clicking in possible amusement. "Not a maintenance worker's technique." Cale stayed silent, using a distraction to down 2 soldiers with shots to weak armor points few civilians would know. Forlag's mandibles clicked faster. "Now I see. Military special operations. How curious to find one protecting in Xyler Royal." A shot from Forlag nearly hit Cale as he dove between cover. The commander was herding him away from the ship. Inside, Lyra felt the ship's systems hit optimal levels. The bay doors opened, revealing space beyond. She hesitated, watching Cale, now outnumbered and pinned by crossfire. Making a choice, she tapped the neural interface, activating the ship's dormant defenses. Energy pulses swept the bay, stunning several Cathar. The distraction let Cale sprint for the ship, diving through the hatch as Forlag's final shot scorched his leg. "Go!" he yelled, slamming the hatch control. The ship lifted, gliding toward the open doors. Forlag fired at the hull, but the Xyler shielding absorbed it. "They'll send fighters," Cale warned, limping to his seat. "Not fast enough." Lyra's hands moved over the interfaces, and the ship surged as it cleared the bay. They hurtled from the station, alarms fading behind. Lyra set a course out of Cathar space. Only then did she turn to Cale, who examined his leg with clinical calm. "Let me help," she offered, finding a medical kit she somehow knew was there. "It's superficial," Cale said, accepting the kit. "Forlag aimed to disable, not kill." "Who are you, really?" Lyra asked, kneeling to treat the burn. Cale watched her apply regenerative gel, silent for a moment. "Does it matter? You risked your life repeatedly for a stranger from a species unrelated to humans. You disabled a bioengineered beast with precision most warriors couldn't match. You navigated Cathar security like you'd studied it. You fought elite soldiers with military skill," she gestured around. "And now we're in a ship unseen for generations, fleeing as fugitives. Yes, it matters who I'm trusting." Cale sighed, leaning back. The ship's hum filled the pause. "I was military," he admitted. "Special reconnaissance. We gathered intel on non-human militaries, including Cathar. That doesn't explain posing as a maintenance worker. My last mission went wrong." A shadow crossed his face. "I was the only survivor. Records listed me dead, which suited everyone. The mission never happened, and a dead man can't contradict that. So you hid, Lyra said. Lived quietly, Kale corrected. Maintenance work is anonymous. Nobody questions the guy fixing waste systems, until today, when you crashed a high-profile execution. Kale shrugged. The beast was loud, messed up my work. Lyra smiled faintly. You keep saying that, but it's not the whole truth. Believe what you want. Kale tested his leg, wincing. I didn't plan on being a fugitive again, but here we are. Here we are, Lyra agreed, returning to the pilot's seat. Where to now? You've got the ancient ship and secret heritage. I'm just along for the ride. Lyra studied the navigation display, thoughtful. There are outposts beyond Cathar space where my people might have taken refuge. We could search for them. Forlag won't quit easily, Kale warned.